Patriotically correct, politically biased, emotionally disturbed. On behalf of all of us at Mojo, we apologize. Stewart's and Richard, PC Radio.
Labor Day, a special edition of the Patriotically Correct radio show, bringing it to you live on this glorious Monday, September 7th, 2020. All kinds of things still going on in our country. And so I know for myself and my family, we were able to take some time to get away over the weekend. Some of the pictures I posted on our Facebook, we were doing a lot of fishing, a lot of pontooning, a lot of tubing with the kids, and it was a great time. Richard, I know that you and Karen and the kids got away over the weekend too. What did you guys end up doing this weekend?
We went to the North Shore of Lake Superior. It was beautiful up there, extremely beautiful. However, it was pretty cold at night. We weren't prepared for 38 degrees overnight in a tent.
You were camping in a tent?
Yes, we were. Yes, we were.
Well, I know Karen is not necessarily the biggest of campers. So how did that all turn out?
I'll tell you what, man. She was a trooper.
Yeah.
Other than being super cold at night, she got a good long hike in. She loves to hike.
Yeah, I did know that about her. She's very in touch with her naturalistic side.
Yes.
Now she's doing some sort of a what is that called? The gluten-free. What is this thing that she's on, this program that she's doing right now? There's a name for it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I just try to be as supportive as possible.
Well,
all I know is that there's red foods, yellow foods, and green foods. Red foods are bad. Yellow foods you can have a little bit of. And green you can have all you want, but they suck.
Okay. And give me an example of some green foods.
Grapes.
Okay.
Grapes. 0% fat yogurt. That's more like wall paste or what you would put when you're taping sheetrock.
Right.
Raw veggies, things like that.
I'm not totally against grapes. I like grapes. Matter of fact, I think I had a few of them between beers over the weekend. The ladies, they like to bring. So we were at the at some, Shelly and Denise. We were at their cabin, and they've got a beautiful place up there. It's in Stearns County, Minnesota, and there's a chain of lakes up there where there's like 16 or 17 different lakes that are all chained together. Some good fishing. You can get into the bass. You can get it. We did a lot of pan fishing, a lot of bluegills, and ran across a couple of catfish. Shelly lost a cat that was probably about 10 or 11 pounds. We had it up, we had it out of the water and everything, but I think he was just a little bit nervous about reaching down there and grabbing it. I don't blame him for that. I mean, catfish are gross. They've got these. Yeah. My dad used to tell me when I was a kid that those little whiskers will sting you. I still, to this day, I'm 40 years old. I have no idea whether or not that's true.
No, I used to hear that too. Catfish are gross until you get them cut up and deep fried.
We're on Twitter at Correct Radio. Use hashtag catfish. I don't know if you might get in some other trouble on Twitter for using that as a hashtag, but try hashtag PC Radio Catfish. Maybe we should do it that way so that we don't end up in there with all of the pedos from the Liberal Progressive Party. Speaking of problems over the weekend, I don't know if you've had a chance to see this or not yet, Richard, but there was a black woman, and I don't know her name, and I'm okay with that. But she's in front of a classroom full of white people. And she's giving them a speech. Did you see this thing? Were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
I think our friend Alex sent this to us in a group message and wanted us to be aware of this. But I'm watching this thing, and I'm just waiting for the Practical Jokers TV show. I'm just waiting for like the hidden camera people to jump out and say, this is a big joke. But there is a classroom environment, and there's like a whiteboard set up, and I'm illustrating for those of you listening on Mojo 50 Radio, iHeartRadio, the 500,000 of you that we are now up to in our block. Woohoo! We started with 28,000, by the way, on this show, and just on our, what are we here? Starting our 5th week, and those numbers have increased exponentially. So we appreciate that listenership. We have gotten a lot of comment about how people are now addicted to PC radio, and there's an actual petition that is starting, Richard, to be signed to give us 2 hours on iHeartRadio. I don't know if programming permits for that at this point. And furthermore, I know that there are several people, including myself, that would not want to hear us doing this for any longer than we already do. So for now, it's 1 hour. By the way, this half of PC Radio brought to you by American Pride Roasters Coffee. It's the only thing that I fill my cup with. okay? Because American Pride Roasters coffee, it's rich, it's bold. There's all kinds of different blends of American Pride Roasters coffee. The one that I fill my cup with is Ron's Sexual Chocolate. And for obvious reasons, Ron with the Daily Mojo, he and Brad Staggs. Brad has the new American Pride Roasters blend. I think it's called Brad's Brown Bag blend, and then that's a lot of B's there. And then there is the Izzo's Rage, Dominic Izzo from the night show on Mojo 50 Radio. He does do 2 hours, and rightfully so, because I could listen to that guy for 6 hours. Very riveting conversation. You never know what the hell's going to happen on the rants of Izzo. One day he might be real serious talking about people like Dylan Wheeler up here who left the QAnon movement and whatever that is. And by the way, I was accused of being a part of that movement, and I'm not. I don't even really know how to pronounce it. QAnon. These guys, they're extremist, radical conservatives, I guess, is what you would call them. And I'm not a part of that group. I'm much more libertarian than I think a lot of people give me credit for. But because I have an American flag behind me, and we've got one up here on the top of the screen, and because we're patriots, as seen down here, I'm assuming that people just assume that we're radical conservatives, which there could be nothing further from the truth. But getting back to this, so this classroom is full of like middle-aged to elderly white folks, predominantly females, who are sitting in this lecture hall, is what it appears to be, and they're being lectured by this woman. Here, let's just take a look at this, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
All white people are racist.
All white people are racist.
So I put this up because
I noticed that she starts like her little giggle there, and she starts giggling because she's uncomfortable. She's laughing out loud that she's able to sit there in front of these people and actually say crap like this. Watch this. Here it is.
All white people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human, like that actually, instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist. So I just want y'all to know that up front.
All right. So we're raised to be, watch your mouth, we're raised to be demons. We're not raised to be humans. Because of our whiteness. This is how we were born, and so automatically we are racist forever, and we will be white supremacists forever, Rich.
I bet you that if you were the white guy to present her that 10-pound catfish deep fried on a platter, she'd be the first one to snatch it out of your hands.
Wow.
That's stupid.
That's
stupid.
That's racist. That's definitely racist.
Well, it's no different than
so
her.
That's not the Nigerian coming out of you, that's the Jew. You know, and I know a lot of Jewish people that are not racist, and I know you, Richard, you're not a racist person, but I do enjoy some catfish. Also, I was actually saying when we did catch the second catfish this weekend, and I got the look from Marie, that's gross, but I actually said, let's deep fry that thing. I mean, there's nothing better than some southern fried catfish. You and I, working on the north side, know that we go to a lot of places in the hood that do, I mean, it's a traditionally African-American black person's meal. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe because of geographically being in the South, there's a lot more catfish that are in fresh water, clean water. I don't know why it is that traditionally black people eat catfish more than white people, but it is a fact. And that doesn't mean that I'm a racist person for recognizing the truth. But this woman is not speaking the truth, Richard. She's saying that every single white person, no matter what, is going to be... And so here's the deal. This is tolerated by the mainstream media. This would never be addressed in the mainstream media because what she's saying to the mainstream media is normal. This is okay with radical progressive liberals who have hijacked the Democratic Party. This is becoming the new normal that black people are just allowed to say things like this. Now, can you imagine, Richard, and I already know that you know where I'm going with this, but can you imagine if I had a lecture hall full of black people and I was telling them, you guys are always going to be thugs? You guys are always going to be criminals. You guys are always going to be starting shit on fire. You guys are always going to be robbing, looting, stealing, and burning. You guys will never be anything more than gangbangers. And that's not your fault. It's because you were born black that you're always going to be a Crip or a Blood or a GD or a Vice Lord. That's just the way it is. And you're never going to get out of the hood, and you're never going to do anything better, and you're never going to have a real job because you're black. It's not your fault. It's just because you're black.
You certainly would be fighting your way right out of that lecture hall.
You know, and I don't understand why these people are sitting there allowing for this rhetoric to continue. Look at this. This is a classroom full of people.
White people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in
They're
the room
apologizing
to know
just by sitting
front
here.
that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears.
We're not going to coddle white tears.
Like. We're not going to discuss, maybe some of us have worked it out.
Nope.
No, you're always going to be racist. Actually.
Always. Yeah, we're not going to discuss the fact that people aren't.
Trying to figure out how to be a better human being.
Right.
Because I believe that white people are born into not being human. Like that
goodness.
Actually, instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons.
Just taught to be demons.
In this particular way, white people are all racist. So I just want y'all to know that.
I just want y'all to know that. White people are all racist. I don't have really words for this. It's mind-boggling, and
it's the problem that is the problem with our society. Mm-hmm. If there's a systemic problem, it's shit like that people even see color. It doesn't matter if it's a white person looking at a black person or an Asian person looking at a white person. It doesn't matter. That is the problem that we have in this country, that all these folks even see color. It's stupid, and for somebody to stand in front of a crowd full of people is absolutely asinine. And what's even more asinine is all the people sitting there who are paying this woman to tell them that they're racist terrorists. What the hell? It must have been in like a geriatric memory unit or something, and these people have no idea what they're sitting in front of.
The Joe Biden unit. Right?
I don't get it, man.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And so also over the weekend, there was Jacob Blake who gave his first statement or recorded message. Yeah. And, he took the time to tell people, listen, don't riot in my name. Don't burn things down. I was really impressed that he was out there saying, listen, don't hurt people. Don't steal things in my name. Please. This is he's accepted personal responsibility now, and he has said, "Look, these police are not racist. They were doing their job. I should have complied. And had I complied with law enforcement, I wouldn't be in this position. So if you're younger and you're watching me, please hear my message that you should just cooperate with the police. If they're doing something unlawful or illegal, you'll have your day in court." Just kidding. He didn't say any of that. Here's what he did say.
And even the older ones, older than me, it's a lot more life to live out here, man. Your life, and not only just your life, your legs, something that you need to move around and move forward in life, can be taken from you like this, man. And I promise you, the type of shit that you'll go through, staples, I got staples in my back, staples in my damn stomach. Mm-hmm. You do not want to have to deal with this shit, man. 24 hours, every 24 hours, it's pain, it's nothing but pain. It hurts to breathe, it hurts to sleep, it hurts to move from side to side, it hurts to eat. Please, I'm telling you, change our lives out there. We can stick together, make some money, make everything easier for our people out here, man, because there's so much time that has been wasted.
All right. So Richard, he's taking the time to talk to his talk to the youth out there. We can make some money together. That's what this is all about, I guess. Now is earning some money, and no doubt he will. His family is going to be awarded millions upon millions of dollars. He will be awarded millions upon millions of dollars without even a question. And so he's lost his legs, and I appreciate the fact that he's in pain. And it doesn't bother me at all. Screw this guy. And here's why I say that. Where's his rape victims? Have we talked about them? Has there been any news media coverage of them talking about the forever pain that they're going to have in their lives, both physical, emotional? They'll never be the same. Have we had the opportunity to talk to the victims about his smelly, sweaty body forcefully being on top of them and raping them and taking their innocence from them and taking their sacred things from them? Have we had the opportunity to hear from these people?
I don't think that we have. And I think that, there is a possibility, and this is probably me having some kind of false hope, but there is a possibility that he does something good with what he's got left to live. There's a way to maybe seek some redemption for the life that he chose before he was in this predicament that he's in now. And hopefully he does that, I hope it's not going to be some money-making scheme to screw over the man. Because look where that got him in the first place, living a life of dishonesty, no integrity, none of that shit.
I don't share the same optimism with you. And I'm sorry to be the Debbie Downer, but just based on this guy's history and based on this is the message that he chose at a time where literally the whole world is waiting for him to speak. And the message that he chose was not one of change, was not one of, listen, the mistakes that I've made in my life, don't make them yourself. I need to be better for my kids, those 3 kids that are forever going to be changed. And the media and sympathizers and the terrorist organization Black Lives Matter will stand there and they will tell you that his actions were justified and that those kids' lives are ruined because of the police. No, those kids' lives are forever changed because of actions of none other than Jacob Blake. The conversation that we need to be having here is the conversation about individual responsibility. Every single decision that you make, there's a consequence for it, whether it's a positive or a negative consequence. Richard, these are the things that we try to instill in Nolan and Eli and Reagan and Devin and Derek and Ryan. These are the things that we teach our young people that we're responsible for bringing into a world that now is, this is a normal part of this, okay? The time of the social media, the instant gratification, the quote-unquote transparency by law enforcement agencies that brings you live on your smartphone the shooting of people in the streets of America, the bludgeoning and attacking and mob-style assaults that take place on people in the street while they get kicked in the face and rendered unconscious and then later die because they were white. I was on social media the other day. There was a post on Mojo 50 Radio that was talking about Breonna Taylor and that there were new leaked documents from the police department or from a police department that exposed her as a complicit actor in a dope dealing ring, and that she wasn't, after all, innocent in the long run at the end of the day. And so then there was a comment of, well, this doesn't have anything to do with what actually happened during that no-knock raid. No, you're right. Maybe it didn't. But then there was also a witness that was from inside of the apartment saying, no, she wasn't sleeping, nobody was sleeping, and we did hear the police knocking. But this kind of stuff will never be looked into by the mainstream media because we're already past that. Breonna Taylor was a black woman, and the only reason why she's dead is because she was a black woman, and the police are bad, and the police are racist, and they knew that inside of there was a sleeping or not sleeping or innocent or dope dealing Breonna Taylor who happened to be black. It's all false. It's all false. But if you put it on Facebook, you know that Zuckerberg and his people over there are going to be the first ones discounting what you say as, quote, mostly false, mostly inaccurate.
Yeah, and this narrative that that white folks hate black people just because they're black is so, I mean, clearly it's very ignorant and stupid. But like, even if that was partly true, then why would any white folks be sharing their space with black people? If me as if the Jew side of me, right, is at Target, and down the aisle of laundry detergent comes a black family, and I hate them so much, why would I allow them to be in my aisle? Why would we allow them to be in our store? It's just so elementary and stupid, and I just don't get it. I don't understand how it can be so prevalent in people's lives that they think that this really is a huge, huge problem. Are there prejudiced folks in this world?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
But but our people hated so much that they hate these people so goddamn much that they're willing to get up, leave their house, and go shoot them in the head because they hate them that much. I don't think so.
I don't think part of this Mojo 50 no, you're fine. Part of this Mojo 50 radio post in the comments, this woman started talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. And how Kyle Rittenhouse, by the way, for those of you who don't know his name, he is the famed teen white shooter from Kenosha that shot 3 people, I think 2 of them dead, and or 1 of them dead. I guess I don't even know the specifics, and I probably should. We've talked to Joe the Cop enough about this thing that I should be a little bit more educated about this. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't really matter if 1 is dead or all 3 are dead. The fact of the matter is that he acted 2 dead. Okay. He acted in self-defense and then was arrested, bless you, and then was arrested and charged with first-degree murder or intentional homicide. And so she brought up Kyle Rittenhouse as being one of these quote-unquote white shooters, mass shooter. If Kyle Rittenhouse was a mass shooter, he would have gunned down everybody on that street. He would have carelessly fired rounds into the crowd. But Kyle Rittenhouse didn't do that. All but 1 of his rounds landed on their intended targets. He was actually very controlled. She said then that I articulated that to her on this Facebook thing. And then, of course, the narrative changed to, well, he shouldn't have been there anyways. He lives 10 miles away in a completely different state. But what you haven't heard yet, or maybe you have, but not widely broadcast, is that Kyle Rittenhouse actually worked with law enforcement as like a cadet, or in Minnesota we call it the Explorers Program, where you're a young person who's not an adult yet. You've expressed an interest in law enforcement, and so you start in one of these programs that allows you to be a part of law enforcement or policing, to kind of work your way into that with a particular department. And I don't know what department it was, if it was in Illinois or if it was actually in Kenosha. But I know that Kenosha was a place where Rittenhouse had worked, and he was there to defend those businesses. There are criminal thugs rioting in the street, hurting people, killing people, and burning things down. So now it's racist to go defend that. So now we're looking at Rittenhouse as a racist mass shooter because he was there to defend that. He was there to say, no, you're not going to burn this and that business down. That's his prerogative. Now, whether or not he was lawfully able to possess that firearm, I don't know. I haven't gotten into it, and I've seen both sides of that story. I know that Illinois, I don't believe he's allowed to. I know Illinois has very, very strict gun laws, which is why, by the way, Chicago is such a safe city to live in. And you don't have to worry about gun violence in Chicago because of the gun laws there. And gun laws work, which is why
there's awesome.
Yes, which is why there's not a meth problem in the United States, because meth is illegal. And which is why we don't have any problems with fentanyl, because that's illegal. And we don't have any problems with illegal immigration, because it's illegal to cross the borders unlawfully without being documented or without properly seeking asylum. It's illegal. So we don't have any of these things going on, which is why there's no speeders on the road and there's nobody driving drunk, because that stuff is illegal also. So all you really have to do is make laws. Enforcing them would be racist. But you just have to make these laws, put them on the books, and then people won't do that stuff. It's unlawful
that simple.
It's unlawful to riot in the streets. It's unlawful to burn things down. It's unlawful to chuck garbage can lids at sergeants with the Minneapolis Police Department while you're rioting about a false piece of information that somebody was gunned down by the police when actually he was a murderer that took his own life. But these aren't the things. These aren't the after stories that you hear about in the mainstream media. You're never going to hear, there will be a short blurb about somebody being arrested for something, and then that's it. They're going to move on, but there's not going to be any videos or anything like that. By the way, a Minneapolis man has been charged with 4 felonies, including second and third degree assault for hitting a police officer with a trash can lid during that violent eruption in downtown Minneapolis late last month, according to charges. Brayshawn Lamar Gibson, 28, who is a resident of North Minneapolis, has been charged in Hennepin County after authorities said he threw a 15-pound trash can lid that struck a police sergeant in the back of the head. The incident took place during the mayhem and followed a false rumor of an officer-involved shooting on August 26th.
Boom.
We are going to have Sheriff Adam Fortney on in the second part of today's program. He is a sheriff in Snohomis County, Washington, who said that he is not going to enforce the Washington state governor's stay-at-home orders, citing them as being unconstitutional. and he is not going to arrest anybody. He is not going to enforce it. He is not going to support it. Sheriff Adam Fortney coming up in the second half. This half brought to you by American Pride Roasters Coffee. More PC Radio straight ahead.
We will force votes. We will not stop. Any Republican senator is part of the cover-up.
What the f?
Impeachment.
Impeachment.
This is madness.
The PC Radio Show with Stu and Rich. Back in a minute.
Hey, it's Stu Peters for Johnson Jewelers. Make sure that you visit them at johnsonjewelers.com. The thing that we like about Johnson Jewelers, I'm going to tell you what we like about it. The fact that they can help anybody anywhere. You do not have to be in Woodbury, Minnesota, where, by the way, Johnson Jewelers is conveniently located for any of you that do live in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area. But no matter where you are in our country, whether you're on the East Coast, the West Coast, on the Canadian border, or down south with our friends, you know what? You can, too, experience the greatness that Johnson Jewelers has to offer. If you want that custom piece of jewelry that you've been looking, maybe your grandma left you a pendant, maybe you have a family crest, maybe there's a stone that you so like, or maybe you have a piece of jewelry that needs complete restoration, the great people at Johnson Jewelers can help you as well. All you have to do is visit them online at johnsonjewelers.com, maybe exchange a few emails and some phone calls, and boom, a custom piece of jewelry just for you. Make sure to visit them, Johnson Jewelers, online at johnsonjewelers.com. johnsonjewelers.com. That's johnsonjewelers.com.
Twitter blew up.
More offensive than a presidential tweet.
Russia, China, Japan, Mexico, all countries will respect us far more than they do under past administrations.
PC Radio with Stu and Rich. Mojo 50 Radio.
And this portion of PC Radio brought to you by Johnson Jewelers. Johnson Jewelers, go visit them online, johnsonjewelers.com. If you have some custom jewelry that you want done, if you've got that old pendant or a stone from grandma or grandpa and you want to bring it closer to you, wear it every day, something that you envision, johnsonjewelers.com. You exchange a few emails with them, maybe a couple of phone calls, and wada bing, bada boom. Karen and her wonderful people over there at Johnson Jewelers will send you the custom jewelry that you envision. Rich, after being away for the weekend, doing some pontooning, it occurred to me after I was looking at my Facebook feed, something that I did not mention during the first part of the show, is there was a big Trump parade while we were up there. And I know that there were some other Trump boat parades. I know Bikers for Trump was down in Hager City, Wisconsin, doing their thing over at the Harbor Bar. And I did not see a Biden parade. On the next day, I was looking for that. Didn't see one. Also, on the drive up to the cabin, which is approximately 2.5 hours, we saw a lot of Trump signs. I did not ever see, by the way, a Biden sign. So if the silent majority is now starting to become less silent, and there are people that are starting to defend themselves, people that are starting to stand up for their beliefs, people that are speaking out against people like the racist that we showed you in the first segment of the show that's saying that all white people are demons, and people are starting to take to the streets and actually voice their opinion. I think the difference between now, Rich, and 2016, when Donald Trump was initially elected president, is I think that there's a lot less of a silent majority now. I think the silent majority is still big, and probably bigger than it was even then. But what I'm saying is that a lot less of that majority are actually silent, and people are taking a stand. Elected officials and elected leaders are also starting to take a stand. We want to show you now our next guest here on PC Radio, and we want to get right into this because we've got a lot of things that we want to talk about with him. Sheriff Adam Fortney from Snohomis County, Washington, took to Facebook on April 21st, and he said that he was not going to enforce or arrest anybody for violating the stay-at-home orders that were issued by the elected representative, the governor there in the state of Washington. And he received some scrutiny for that. This thing kind of blew up, and now there's actually like a recall effort against this guy for being a leader, and we want to show you some of that media coverage that was brought to him.
I'm going to stand up for what I believe in.
Adam Fortney makes no apologies for his Facebook post calling out Governor Jay Inslee's ongoing stay-at-home order and announcing he would not enforce it.
I said something. It was a little bit controversial, but it was a Facebook post, for crying out loud.
Facebook carries a lot of weight, though.
Sure it does. I think I said what a lot of people in our community were thinking, the same thing.
We're going to have to stand up and fight back.
One of them was 79-year-old Snohomish barber Bob Martin, who said the sheriff's proclamation inspired him to reopen in direct violation of the law, with no social distancing and apparently no fear of contracting or spreading deadly COVID-19. If he gets sick or if somebody else gets sick at that barbershop, what responsibility do you bear?
I don't know that I bear responsibility. I mean, nobody wants that to happen. That's a politically charged question that you just asked me, and I understand why you asked it, but let's go down to Lowe's and ask them, what if somebody gets sick? Let's go down to Home Depot and ask them, well, what if somebody gets sick? They've never shut down.
Fortney was elected sheriff last year on a law and order campaign, but is now accused of picking and choosing which laws to enforce. It is the law, right? Is that
Absolutely.
hypocritical on your part?
No, and this is why. I thank you for that question. I guess it's been phrased in other ways, which laws are you going to enforce or not, right? That is done every day in law enforcement, every single day.
Yeah, it's called discretion, which is what officers are faced with every single day and every single contact that they have. On PC Radio, we want to get right into this right now. Sheriff Adam Fortney, welcome to the program. And first of all, we want to thank you for your service, sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for saying so, and thanks for having me this morning. I really appreciate it.
We're big backers of law enforcement here on the Patriotically Correct radio show. Also, Richard and I, if just for full disclosure, we work in the private sector of law enforcement. We've been doing fugitive apprehension together for about 15 or 16 years, and we now operate out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is the epicenter for a lot of the things that you've been dealing with. I'm sure that there's been some fallout there as a result of the death of George Floyd, because that's been nationwide. But what we want to talk about here is the efforts to recall you based on your message to the citizens of Snohomish County that you're not going to enforce this. So first, let's talk about the decision. Why don't you tell us, why did you make that decision, Sheriff?
Yeah, so a lot went into it. I'll try to be very, very brief here. So in late March, early April, I got to put this in context a little bit. We were shut down here like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And initially, we all bought in, man. Remember the predictions for COVID were, a couple million dying. It was pretty dire, right? But then weeks and weeks go by and people are looking around thinking, okay, maybe it wasn't so as bad. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not trying to weigh in on that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is our governor, the bulk of my Facebook post was about the disparate treatment by government to the people of the state of Washington and dictating who is essential, who could work, who could make a living for their family or not. So 80 to 90% of my post was about that. We have pot shops here in Snohomish County, Washington, almost every corner. And let me be clear, it's not even it is some medical use, but it's recreational marijuana, right? They have been open entire time during COVID-19. And what the conflict at the time was, government would allow government contracts to work for construction, but if you're private construction, you couldn't. I basically came out and said, this is not right. This is not fair. And I think the only reason it got so much attention was because so many other people were thinking the same thing. And yes, I absolutely said what you quoted me at the beginning about constitutional rights. I do stand by that. Man, when you can't show up for church on a Sunday, even if we want to acknowledge that maybe that was appropriate during March and early April, and now we're months into this thing, that's a big deal. Our founders in the First Amendment said, no, you can worship as you believe that you want, however you want to worship. And that right was actually specifically granted to us in the Constitution. So that's a big deal. So yeah, I came out and said, I'm not going to enforce this thing. And the funny thing is our enforcement in Washington State is different all over the country. It's a gross misdemeanor, which that means for law enforcement, for our sheriff's office. If we're going to enforce this thing, it's literally, and I mean this, throwing people in the jail. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the same people who are recalling me wants the jail empty because of COVID and their social justice reasoning and everything else. So I think it's a complete hypocrisy on their part to where they're saying, oh, we're going to recall this guy because he won't enforce the order, but they don't want people in jail anyway. It's part of their overall program. They do not want tough on crime sheriff in there, which I spent the last year of my life running to get elected. I've only been in office since January 1st. And now, yeah, they want me out and they want politicians to be able to pick the next sheriff. And that's what would happen if I do get recalled. So,
well, Sheriff, I want to, I first of all want to commend you because, my wife is a small business owner. I'm a private contractor and I work for a small business owner as well. And so these things are extremely, extremely sensitive to families like mine. And I know that when our governor decided to shut down the place, my wife very bravely said, screw that. They're going to have to come with guns and cops and everything and tell me to shut my doors because we have a mortgage to pay, we have kids to feed, you know. And I also work a part-time job at a Harley Davidson dealership, and the guy that owned that place said the same thing. We have people here that depend on coming to work every day just in order to pay their rent or pay for their car or whatever it is. And so without business owners like that, you know, I know my family would be in a whole lot worse situation. And so in your post from the 22nd, one of your opening lines of one of your paragraphs was, as elected leaders, I think we should be questioning governors when it makes sense to do so. And you're absolutely right. And we talked last week about how some of our elected leaders, if you want to say that, are really just elected representatives because they don't really have their constituency or their county or their people at the top of their list. And so, you know, I think that you're spot on. And I'd be really interested to see what the difference is between the construction companies, as you outlined, that are building government facilities that are still able to work versus the little guy who builds homes, you know, and it's him and his sons maybe that run and work for the business, what the difference is in what they pay the government, right? You know, every quarter. And I think you're right. I think that has a lot to do with why they were allowed to stay open. So good on you, man. I really want to commend you for that.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And it's outside the realm of public safety when I start talking about, you know, businesses, but it's not. It's all related. And you mentioned elected officials. I'll even take it a step further. If they're not going to speak up now during this time, and you don't have to agree with me, speak up on any side of the issue. It doesn't matter to me. But if you're not going to speak up now as an elected official, what the heck are you doing in office? You know, so I'm a politician because I did run, I did get elected, but that's not my background. I'm a street cop, have been for a couple decades. And I always expect I want to know where they stand. Just tell me where you stand. You know, we don't need to get into the whole Trump thing, but I think that's part of the attraction to Trump is he just tells it like it is, whether you agree with him or not, right? And there's plenty of people who don't agree with him. I think people, the politicians that they talk for a long time, they can speak very eloquently for 20 minutes, and then at the end of that 20 minutes, you're like, what did they just say, or what did that mean? I'm done with it. You know what? I call things like I see it. I try to, and I think that's what people want from elected officials. And one of the reasons that I got so much support after this Facebook post, and some not so good support either. So
on the phone with us right now is Sheriff Adam Fortney from Snohomish County, Washington. Now, Sheriff, are you still taking the stand? I mean, you're still refusing to arrest people for this gross misdemeanor violation, correct?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm not throwing business owner or residents in Snohomish County into jail, literally into the Snohomish County jail for either opening a business. Now, I got to be careful here. There's other ramifications they can get from the state. Okay, business license things and stuff like that.
Right.
But we're on our way to opening. We're not quite there yet. But no, listen, this thing's become such a political issue with the recall. There hasn't been one person in Washington State arrested. The only difference between me and every other elected sheriff, or not every other, a couple others have spoken out since, but police chiefs and such who don't have such a voice as an elected sheriff, so I'll give them that, is that just not one person has been arrested. I don't think the governor wanted people arrested. The difference is I came out and said it in kind of a provocative way. I picked a fight with the sitting governor, and there's repercussions for that. But something had to be said.
Some of the repercussions that you're dealing with right now is this effort to recall you, or basically to unseat you. And there was a demonstration that was taking place on the street where both sides of people were out there, and a journalist came out and asked you some questions. I want to play this short clip right here, and these were your answers.
So I'm kind of proud to see the other side out here and our side. We have that right to do that. That's why I said that back a couple months ago. Nobody can take that right from us. So it's kind of cool to see that. It's hard to see, okay, because I know what their message is. I hear them loud and clear. That's difficult, and I just like to point out they have never sat down and talked with me. I have never met them face to face. They have never said, "Hey, Sheriff, can we come up to your office and talk to you? We really don't like what you're doing." Because my answer every time is, "Sure, come on up." They've never done that.
And that seems to be consistent with, Sheriff, with this and you know, I hate to politicize this deal because, like you said, you're a law enforcement head, you're a street cop, you worked as a patrol officer, and then you were a patrol sergeant, and you're now the elected sheriff. So you do have sort of a political obligation, I guess I would say, because I don't know why this is, but in the United States, even sheriffs are supposed to pick one side of the aisle or the other. But let's just call it what it is. It's a law and order side of the aisle. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a Republican or a Democrat. You have a specific set of core values that you believe in. And you're not afraid to speak that. But your opposition, it seems, and it seems to be the trend with liberal progressives who have hijacked the Democratic Party and are using that name and name only, because you and I both know, and so does Richard, we've talked about it on our show at nauseum, that there are good Democrats out there. And there are probably Democrats out there that support you in this. But it's interesting to me that they never want to come to you. They never want to sit down and have a discussion, because anytime that you want to talk sensibly or logically, the answer is no. Can you opine on that a little bit?
Yeah, I liken, and talking about the recall people specifically.
Right.
They are the far left. I don't like the divisive stuff either, specifically because I'm in public safety, and that's for everybody in Snohomish County. That's what I got elected to do, and that's what I'm going to do. But they are, I don't know how else to say it. They are far, far left. I liken them to the cancel culture, these people that want to destroy our history, destroy our monuments, and things like that. They don't want to sit down and talk. They do not want to work things out. It is, you agree with our far left defund the police message, or we want to cancel you. That is literally what they are doing here in Snohomish County to me. It's frustrating because this same group, de-escalation is a key word in police work, that's a good thing. We want to de-escalate situations every time we can. And they're constantly screaming for that and for more training. And I'm thinking, that's why I said that on that clip you played, is that these are the people who scream for de-escalation from police to quit using force, yet they've never tried to de-escalate a thing with me. They never tried to have an open dialogue with me, another word they love. They've never tried to collaborate with me, another word that they love to use. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they're empty. I am speaking on my core values, and it's been uncomfortable, man. Let me tell you, it hasn't been all fun. There's been some rough nights for me and my family, especially back in April when this post first really got traction. And so, but we're going to stand by our values, They preach a whole lot of stuff, but they don't practice a whole lot what they preach, and that's frustrating to me.
Well, it's interesting that this comes up because just this last weekend I was up north with my family, and my wife had a few friends up there that go up there regularly, and we were all sitting around the bonfire, and we were having conversations. Of course, the conversation always starts with they ask me about new bounty hunting stories, and so you appease them by telling them a thing or two, and then we get into what's going on in our country. And one of my wife's friends is very, very other side of the aisle for me, I would say. And so when things start getting real, or things start to get a little hard to talk about or deal with, but yet they are the facts and the truth of what really goes on, the response was, well, we probably shouldn't talk about this because it's going to end in a fight. And
don't talk about it.
So maybe I'm sure that you experience the same thing, Sheriff. Whenever you're making sense and you invite to have this conversation with the people who are telling you you're wrong, they're not going to respond. They're not going to come sit in your office, because then they'll look like complete idiots, right? Because you're right. I mean, what you say is making sense. And so I always kind of take this stand personally that I'm not a very educated person when it comes to politics. When you ask me, it's whatever makes sense, right? What's the best thing for myself, my family, the people I care about in my community? And I think that law enforcement is a whole lot like veterans issues when it comes to politics, right? Both sides of the aisle can agree on what's needed. And so I think, good for you for trying to have those conversations, and I would keep inviting them. I mean, they got to say something at some point, because they're going to have to be reelected. And if you're still there questioning their methods, somebody's going to have to hold them accountable.
Well, yeah, so I kind of got the tag. I'm a tough on crime, sheriff, all that kind of stuff. But man, not only can we I am doing both, and I think I'm obligated to do both. And what I mean by that is the conversation you described around the campfire that just gets to a point and you can't talk anymore. With some people, it's like that, and I don't know that I have the answer for that this morning. But what we're doing is just literally yesterday afternoon, I had a community group to my house, and we met several times at the office. I'm like, let's get out of the office. Come on over to my place. And we're having those conversations. Now, listen, I'm not the guy that says all police are racist. I'm not. I think police, for the most part, do a really, really good job. And when there are issues, we will deal with them. But there are groups out there that there's very valuable conversations going on. And one of those, they were at my place last night, where we can have those conversations, where they might be BLM supporters, right? But they're not the anti-cop, defund the police crowd either. They're law and order people. There's some racial equity issues going on in our country, and whether you like it or not, or want to talk about it or not, the conversation is here, especially for law enforcement leadership. So we're having those as well. We can do both, and like I said, my values don't change, man, based on politics. It is, you want to come to my house, whether you're left, right, Republican, Democrat, it's all good. Come on, let's talk. My decisions, my political decisions, they're based on my values, and the community can decide in 4 years whether that's in line with what they want again, or sooner if I get recalled, I guess.
Yeah,
but
a lot of these people, you discuss BLM supporters, and the way that I differentiate this on this show and in real life, because this show is an extension of who I am as a person and my beliefs. I will never say anything on this show that I don't have 100% conviction about. I'm as open and transparent and vulnerable on this show as I possibly can be, and I think I speak for Rich in that regard as well. My opinion of this and this BLM thing is that there are two different types of people who are supporters of this, okay? If you walk up to me and you say Black Lives Matter, my answer to you is going to be, you're right. Absolutely they do. Yep. Now, if you ask me if I support the political group Black Lives Matter, I will say no. It's my opinion that they're terrorists, because these people are using intimidation in the streets. They are literally making people bow on their knees and raise their fist in the air with solidarity with that group, and put their fist in the air and apologize for their whiteness. That is not something I can get with. And to me, that's criminal activity. So I would look to my elected sheriff or the street cops to be intervening in this. But the problem that we're seeing today, Sheriff, is that so many people that are in your position are feckless and weak and cowards. You actually see them in the streets bowing literally on their knees to this group of people, laying down on their stomachs, putting their hands behind their back, in full submission to these people. And my message to those sheriffs and to those high-ranking police command staffs is that your officers better get very used to that position, because that's the very position they're going to be in when they're executed and killed by the very people that they show support for. So you have to be careful about where you draw the line in the sand. And so in Snohomish County, my question to you there is, are you guys actively intervening, and are you guys actively stopping people from being out there looting and burning and robbing and stealing and raping and pillaging? Are you getting involved with this and saying, no, we're not going to tolerate this kind of activity?
So I'll answer, but I want to say one thing. In Snohomish County, we have not seen what you're seeing in Seattle, in Wisconsin, and we have not seen to that extent, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, Seattle's really close. So we've prepared for it, but fortunately, it hasn't come to fruition, at least to that extent. Yes, we've absolutely seen small protests. Almost all have been peaceful. And so would I allow looting, rioting, destruction of property? Absolutely not. Not going to happen. We did have an incident here at the end of May in the city of Snohomish, and I got to say, I don't think the people in Snohomish County are going to take it, because they show up en masse if there's a threat or things like that. And they did, and that got a lot of attention back then. And it ended up to be a really big issue for me to work through. But no, I just, that's what we're here to do, right? I mean, you want to peacefully protest, I'm going to stand with you because I spoke on constitutional rights. And as I said, that's not a right or left issue. It's for everybody. But you don't get to take it to the extent that you're committing a crime against the community. You don't get to destroy small businesses. You don't get to burn things. You don't get to put other people in danger. And like you mentioned before, this about politics in general, just where's the common sense gone? You know, you can't allow this stuff. I mean, what's Portland on? The 100th day? And there was a Trump supporter who was literally murdered there a week ago. That's just not acceptable in my world. But, you know, that fortunately we're doing okay up here in Snohomish County. We have smaller issues arise every now and then. but not to the extent you're seeing in the big cities.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, Portland is just an absolute disaster, and I look at things like that in Minneapolis here and Kenosha, and I wonder how we got there, how the law enforcement officials got to that point where it's just, hey, it is what it is. They're riding, they're peaceful protesting, and I think that that mayor of Portland, what is his name, something Wheeler, correct? You know,
right.
He clearly hates President Trump. But what if I'm a citizen there and the president is offering to end all this bullshit that's happening in my community? Why would I be okay with my mayor saying, nope, I'm not gonna, we're good. We're not gonna accept your help. I'd be outraged. And, you know, maybe they should be recalling that guy. Not somebody who's just trying to, you know, do what makes sense. It's all very frustrating to me.
It's very frustrating. I don't claim to understand what goes on in the inner workings of, say, the city of Seattle or the city of Portland. I don't understand what they're doing. I think most people think, I mean, it gets, the media just plays this stuff up so much. I think most people out here just trying to make a living and work for their families and things like that, they don't agree with this stuff. I think they're on our side, but man, it's been going on for months now, and like there's no end in sight in Portland. I don't have the answer for down there.
On the phone with us,
it is not fair to the community.
Talking live with us here on PC Radio today is Sheriff Adam Fortney, Snohomish County, Washington. He has recently attracted a lot of media attention for his refusal to jail somebody who is in violation of the governor's stay-at-home orders. You know, we briefly touched on the fact that, you know, and what you said to this ambushed journalist who was trying to completely burn you when he posed the question. And I admire your tenacity, and I admire your open, honest, truthful answers, because what we get from a lot of people that are elected representatives is we get people like you said that are beating around the question, and they'll take 5 minutes or 20 or 30 and say a bunch of crap, and you never really know what they said because there's no message. The reason why they do that, it's no secret that they don't actually want to have a position, because then they alienate somebody who has a position that's opposite of theirs. So what we oftentimes see is politicians trying to appease everybody. People who don't do that know that that's impossible. You can't do it. So you actually do have to pick a side. Well, along with picking a side comes scrutiny from the other side. And it just so happens that, Sheriff, you're in a position where the other side is unwilling to talk. But what you said was, why don't we go talk to Lowe's? Why don't we go talk to, in our state, it's Menards or Home Depot or some of these bigger stores, or in your place, the dope shops. They're allowed to sell weed or THC or CBD or whatever it is, or liquor stores. They're allowed to stay open. You know, but you go to your mom and pop barber, the guy who's 79 years old that was in that story, who then was inspired by you. Do you think that there's other people that are inspired by you and saying, you know what? Finally, thank God I can do and participate in the American dream. I've put everything on the line to run this business. Small business is no doubt the backbone of the United States economy. Yeah. Are you seeing in about a minute or less other people become more brave or more brazen or more comfortable with their constitutional rights?
Oh, yeah, I think so, because I talked to them. Yeah, absolutely. I think people are still being careful out here. You know, you should be. That's fine. Use precautions, all that kind of stuff. But it comes down to it's just the same example. You walk through a Lowe's or Home Depot, thousands of people on a busy weekend, right? And you're telling me, with no outbreaks, by the way, no huge outbreaks or anything like that. Yeah. But a mom and pop shop in Snohomish, Washington, who might see 10 to 15 people a day, was still being told, no, you can't open up to make a living for your family. Yeah, that's not okay. And I guess your question was, did it resonate with others? Yeah, I think it did. And again, it's a fine line. You know, I want to support those people. I think that's, you know, I took an oath to the Constitution. I think that's what I'm standing up for. But I don't want businesses in our community either to get in trouble with the state. But I think it was encouraging. I mean, my Facebook posts don't usually get that much attention to be real with you. So this one went everywhere. Yeah. But I think people needed to hear it. People don't want to hear the doom and gloom. Now, if it's real, then yeah, so be it. But I think people needed a little bit of hope. I think people needed someone in a position of authority, which now that I'm an elected official, I have. They needed to hear that. They needed to hear that there was light at the end of the tunnel, that someone was hearing from the people who didn't have a voice. We didn't have a voice with this governor in this state. And I didn't just do this thing in 5 minutes. This was a couple weeks in the making. I tried to give the governor the benefit of the doubt, but finally someone had to say something. I talked to a lot of people, community people, elected people, and we were on the same page. I'm like, great, you're going to come out with me and say something about it? No, not a chance, right?
Yeah.
And so it was time for somebody to say something. I'm glad I did, because I think our community here just it had to be said.
I got to get out of here, Sheriff. I'm up against a hard break. You can support him by going to defendsherifffortney.com. That's defendsherifffortney.com. I can't thank you enough for allowing us to have you on the show. And Richard, last word.
See you tomorrow.
All right. A special, a special Labor Day edition of the PC Radio Show, Patriotically Correct Radio, coming to you Monday through Friday, Mojo 50 Radio, iHeartRadio, on the Opslands app, and everywhere that low-budget afternoon radio programming can be found. Interesting conversation with Sheriff Fortney. Until tomorrow, here's what's up to it. Here's what's down to it. Here's to any way you can get to it. Here's to those that don't do it. May they be dragged to it, tied to it, or forced to it. And here's to us who do it, because we're the ones that's used to it. Fly low and avoid the radar. One day they're going to come for the car. When they do, save the radio.
Their mamas always told them they'd never amount to anything.
You know what? I am going to ground you for 3 months.
Yeah, they were right.
Why doesn't anybody ever listen?
Stuart and Richard, PC Radio is on.